Hello guys, and welcome back to the planking of the Black Swan, aka the Wicked Wench. I promised that I would do some commentary on the planking. The way that I plank this ship here is very easy, and it's very fast compared to the quotations, the correct way, you can say. There is a correct way to plank a ship, but that is kind of a rabbit hole, because you normally taper the planks, so they have the width in the middle of the plank, and then they thin down and become more square at the end of the plank. And there's a whole mathematic solution on how to get the correct planking width on the planks all the way throughout the ship. So what you can do is that you can measure the length of the edge of the bulwark. Here's the middle of the hull, and then divide this figure with the width of the planking strip that you're gonna use. So that will give you a number of planks that you need to have on the hull. And if you take a similar measurement on the first and second bulwark of the bows and divide this number with the length of the planks, and you will get a approximately guide to how thick or how much tapered the plank should be at the end, which means that it's probably going to be 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter. When you're doing model ship, it's very difficult to get the absolute correct planking and follow the absolute true lines of the ship's curves. But you can do your best and do the tapering and using the mathematic guide that I just said. This method that I'm using here is something that I use when I know that I'm gonna paint the ship. Because when you paint the ship, you don't always see the lines of the planks on the hull. So for me, it doesn't really matter when doing this particular ship. If I am going to do a ship which is going to have natural wood, then obviously I'm gonna do the tapering planking, because you're gonna see the planking, and it's gonna be really nice to see that it's done the proper way. But again, this here is basically just a guide to, if you're a beginner and you're struggling with planking, you can use this method, even though that some say that it's not correct. It is not correct, but it's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing this. And you also have to keep in mind that 95 or 98% of model ship builders build ships to put on the shelf in their living room. So it's not going to be a museum piece, and it's still something that you can be proud of, even though if you're told that it's wrong or not wrong. So I recommend, if you're a beginner and you're struggling with planking, that you use this method. Also, it's happens to be the same method that Occre recommends doing when you're planking the ship. They recommend this because it's an easy way of planking, and it's if you have an Occre ship or have this ship, you will see in the instructions that you kind of start with two full length planks that go straight. Something that I learned from the very beginning of my modeling career when I started modeling, was that you never bend a plank in a way that it doesn't that's not natural for it. Like you don't bend it upwards, you don't bend it downwards and whatnot. Just let the plank run its full length, because then it creates less tension on the hull, on the frames. So here I start with two full-length planks that goes all the way to the bow and to the stern, and then I put in a spacer. I'll build so that will be in the middle of the hull. I am actually doing almost a full length here on this, so that will create in the bow section, it will create a triangle, and you fill in that triangle by making another triangle from a piece of the plank. You simply just put a plank on and do the measures and cut it with a hobby knife, and then you can put it in. So the next plank that I'm going to put in is going to be also a full length. I'm using water. My planks, I don't usually put them in water overnight, but you can if you want to. It's fine. It doesn't hurt. There's just one thing that you need to be well aware of, is that you need to really push it up against the plank on the ship, the other plank on the ship. Because when it dries, it can actually shrink a little bit, and that will leave you a gap. So you really need to push it all the way up there, and use glue. I'm using an electric plank bender to bend the plank. My plank has been they've been dipped in water, and then the plank bender has preheated, and then it's just bending it with the tool. You can also use an iron, and I know there's also like a normal clothing iron. You can use that as well. Also, that also can provide you steam actually, so you can actually steam your planks if you want to. I'm using this plank bender, which is I'm very happy about. You can use a soldering iron, and you can use there's some almost some sort of a small cutter that makes indents in the wood, makes it easier to plank, make it easier to bend the wood. But I'm using that electric plank bender, which is highly recommendable. And then I use these thumbtacks to hold down the plank, and that's something that I do. It's not something that I just will recommend that you do. You can do if you want to do it, but this is just what I do. The reason why I won't recommend it as such is because that the frames of the ships are rather narrow. I think they're only like 4 millimeters, and when you take one of these thumbtacks and you you hammer it down in the frame, it can very easily split. So it might take some practice before you do that. You can also use clamps. I also use clamps. I use whatever tools that I need. The clamps that I use is the one that you see right in front of my right in front of the desk, right in front of me, just behind the saw. So that's what I'm using here. So I'm basically just following the instructions of the in the plans that Occre provided. So 2 full-length planks, 1 spacer, then one full length plank, and then a spacer again. At this point, I am not just I'm using the spacer only at the bow, meaning that it doesn't go all the way to the bow, but it goes all the way back to the stern. So that closes the stern pretty good. Again, when I'm doing the ship that I need to paint and I need to weather and everything, so it doesn't really matter to me how the planking is going to be. I just need it to be quick because I need it to move forward, and the purpose of the ship is not to be like a pristine display model. The purpose of the ship is to make a battle diorama. And half of the hull is going to be submerged in some sort of foam board with watery waves and stuff like that, and there's going to be a lot going on that diorama, so you're not going to notice anything. But yeah, follow the instructions of the Occre instructions, and you will get this result. On a very rare note, I'm actually gonna double plank this ship, which we're gonna be in the next video. I'm not gonna show the entire planking of the double planking, basically because it's it's the same that you see just now, and it's the same thing that applies. I am going to show some small tips and tricks with some leftover sawdust that you can use for a filler if you get a little bit of space between your planks. You can use white glue and then some of the old sawdust that I've saved from when I used when I planked my Santa Ana. I had a lot of sawdust left over, so I have that in a little box. And I use that if there is a gap in my double planking. Again, for me, it's not that important because it's going to be painted and weathered and stuff like that. So yeah, there I used a clamp to hold it down. There's also the possibility that you get a planking that is stepped, meaning that the if you take the hull of the ship and you put it up in front of your eyes with the bow in your face, you can see that the planks are kind of like stepping, and that's okay. It's something that's going to be sanded away, so you're not going to see it. The reason why I get it is because I use these thumbtacks that I use, and that means that it doesn't hold down the entire plank, so it only holds down the plank the area where the thumbtack sits, meaning that the plank can actually rise a little bit up against the next one, but it's still glued, and you have 2 millimeters, and it's really enough to have that and just sand it away. So here's one of the steelers that I'm using. So just a small triangle. It's nice to yeah, don't forget to subscribe. It's nice to make it a little bit bigger than it actually is supposed to be. So you can use a hammer to put it down, because that makes a really good fit with the ship. It doesn't create any big glue lines or anything like that. That's the way that I like to do them. I don't like to have them too small. I like them to have be a little bit bigger, so you actually can use a hammer, so I use a hammer to get them down. I think this is the last spacer that I'm gonna do before I start on the plank near the keel. The reason I do that is because then I can assemble, or then I just have a hole in the middle. It's gonna make sense. But again, the plank near the keel is just gonna run its full length. The only issue, or not issue, but the only thing is that it's gonna be twisted a little bit because it's gonna go from lying flat to lying vertical, to near where the rudder is. So it's going to have a little twist, and for that I would recommend that the plank is soaked. You don't need to use a heater, because the plank itself is going to be so flexible if it's soaked in water for overnight. And then basically it's just yeah, I also wrote it there that I soaked it overnight. So PVA glue, not all the way down, but yeah, then you just make sure that it's nice and nicely fitted and what's it called, secured on the frames before you start to do the twist, because if it's not secured to the frames, you're just gonna twist the whole plank off again. So start in the middle, and hold it down. You can also actually, no, it's gonna be too long. But yeah, so yeah, making the plan secure, and then I'm gonna twist it, and then I'm gonna use a clamp to hold it down, and then I'm gonna use CA glue to make it adhere faster, way faster. Other than the white glue, it would take too long, and I don't want it to move around, because then I can continue. This is a little trick that I learned actually. If you need to have a small bend, in your plank, you can use your thumb to rub the plank, and the friction will create heat, and you can gently actually push the plank down to the frames without the plank breaking. That's something that I use very much. I actually use that method when planking the Fram. I also use the method when I plank the Santa Ana and also my Santisima Trinidad. It's just a neat little trick, but you can't really, I mean, you have to do it with small bends. You can't really do an aggressive bend in that way. Then it's going to break. Yeah, so again, a full length plank, secure, all nice and snug up against the other plank. Make sure that it really touches each other, and if the glue is spilling out, then the perfect it is, because you really need to have that bond between the planks, and also so you don't get any gaps or anything else. I'm gonna run I could, if you see there, I could have actually pushed the end of the plank up against the other plank, but I'm not. I'm gonna just have the plank run its course, run its length without bending it, so I don't create any tension whatsoever. Again, securing it with CA glue, and I use a very thin CA glue, so I get the what's it called, the capilla effect, where it actually runs into every crevice and stuff like that, to get a nice bond. Once I did the first two planks near the keel in full length, I'm gonna switch over to use the what's it called, the spacer again, or the filler, and then start creating more triangles that I'm just gonna end up filling up. I always save pieces that I cut off, because then I have, I mean, it's yeah, it's something that I do because I have them. Then I don't what's it called? I don't need to ruin a plank to cut up a whole plank up to get a little piece of extra wood to make a triangle or to make a steeler. So I'm using the scrap wood that I cut off to make steelers from. Obviously, if I don't have any scrap wood, I'm going to use a plank. But if you do that, you will actually end up having a lot of planks in your workshop all of a sudden, that you can use to practice on planking stuff. I use them for if I have an idea on doing a weathering thing, or a certain type of weathering. I glue them together to make like a raft, and then I practice with my weathering techniques on them, and then I just throw them out. But yeah, but this is basically the whole process that I'm using. It is the quotation mark wrong process, and as I said, if you want the correct, authentic planking, you need to study the ship that you're doing, because there's a certain method that's kind of like universal, like the tabbering planks, but there are so many forms of connections where the planks meet up at the hull. On a real ship, they just don't butt up against each other. They have some sort of connection, which has been cut out in the wood, so they kind of like form like a hook, so they keep each other at bay. I can't remember what it's called, and I don't know if you know what I mean. But you have to make those as well if you want to go all realistic and all authentic in planking. And I don't think that the planking on, let's say, HMS Victory is the same on Codisac, for instance. So you can't say that you're planking wrong. Means that the only thing that you don't do is tapering the wood in order to make like realistic planking. You really need to study the ship and look at how the planks are made and done and stuff like that. And it's as I said, it's kind of like a rabbit hole, and you decide how deep you want to go down that rabbit hole. I normally don't go down that much. I did some pretty connections on my Santisima Trinidad, but you can't really see them because they're so small. So it's not really worth it. It's fun to do, and it's kind of like a show-off thing, but you're not going to notice it. Once the sails and rigging and everything is on the ship, you're not going to notice that little thing on the hull of cover planks that has a special connection out of several planks on a ship hull. So you can just do whatever you want. Like if you find this method easier, then use this method. If you want to dive down and learn the tapering effect or the tapering, there's loads of videos on YouTube. For this, I'm just showing an easy way of planking. There I explained the. You can see that it actually goes down pretty well without breaking. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave you here. Very easy method to use. Recommended if you're a beginner modeler who's planking your ship for the first time. There's nothing wrong with it. You will have some people saying it's wrong, but it is what it is. It's your ship. You can do whatever you want with it. If you want to have a pink ship, you can make a pink ship. So yeah, I hope this video has helped you a lot, or just to help you a little bit. I'm getting all caught up now. So yeah, you see the effect. You get a smaller and smaller gap on the middle of the ship, which means that you have to do your final piece. You have to really, not really, but you have to make a small piece that just fit in nicely at the middle of the hull to close it up. Anyways, I'm gonna leave you for now and let the rest of the video just be some music. If you have any questions, you're very welcome to comment. Please, you're also very welcome to share the video if you want to. But otherwise, please like and subscribe if you haven't. It means a lot for the channel, and I will see you again in the next one. Cheers. Bye bye.